Okay, everybody, our next speaker this morning is here to help us develop a successful mindset for our players. Gene Zannetti graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a major in psychology, competing and succeeding as a top wrestler during his undergraduate years as well. He's gone on to get 2 master's degrees in both clinical and sports psychology. 10 years ago, Gene founded Winning Mindset, helping people realize their mental potential both within athletics and in other fields. The title of his talk today is Building the Predator Mindset in Baseball. Please join me in welcoming Gene Zannetti.
Thank you very much. All right, it's time to get the mental edge. Real excited to be with everyone today. You know, I've lived in Massachusetts for 2 years. While I was doing my master's degree at Springfield College, my degree was in exercise science and sports psychology. So I lived in Massachusetts for a while. Since then, I've been around the Stockbridge area pretty frequently, especially when I'm working with different teams up in Albany. I would stop by usually in that area. And again, it's great to be with you. You know, I was coaching when I was over at Springfield College. I was a wrestler back at the University of Pennsylvania. Me and both of my brothers, we were ranked in the top 20 in the country. My youngest brother wrestled at Rutgers University. So we understand what it's like competing at a high level. Well, on top of that, I was coaching at Springfield College. So I know what it's like being in your shoes, trying to get the most out of your athletes. And we always talk about that our goal is the same as yours. We want to use baseball as a vehicle to build virtue and mental skills for life, right? Confidence is confidence. Mental toughness is mental toughness. It doesn't make a difference if we're in championship baseball game, taking the ACTs or SATs, job interview, dealing with COVID, life in general. Do you believe in yourself or not? Do you know what to focus on? Can you bounce back from mistakes? Those are all common things we see. Having the right focus, knowing what to weed out and knowing what to hone in on. So those success principles are the same. And we've been very blessed working with wrestling. We've worked with the US Olympic teams. We've worked with UFC fighters, professional athletes. We actually worked with Andy Pettit and Lance Berkman's baseball team down in Houston, Texas. They were coaching a high school team. I believe it was Lance Berkman's son's team. So we were over there helping them out. Obviously, we're not going to teach them anything about baseball. We're here to talk about the mindset and specifically how to improve that mindset. Just like a strength coach shows you how to do the strength training exercises, we show the mindset exercises. Also, since then, again, we've really branched out. We work with Fortune 500 companies. I work with Northwestern Mutual every week. Mass Mutual, we did their 2021 kickoff. We work with the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. With the Huntington Learning Center, do presentation with them. So it's mindset's mindset. That's the key. How do we get the most out of ourselves? So the first question I usually ask is, what percentage of baseball is physical and what percentage is mental, if you had to say? You think about it for a second. What percentage of baseball success is physical versus mental? Now, if you're like most people, they're saying success is somewhere between 50 and 90% mental. Almost all serious baseball players are saying it's somewhere between 50 and 90% mental. Well, then ask yourself this question: what percentage of your preparation, what percentage of your training is physical versus mental? And usually it's the exact opposite. We say it's 90% mental, yet our training is, 90, 95% physical. And it was very similar back when I was coaching. And because it's not as concrete, it's not as tangible, yet we all know how important the mindset is. Now, most baseball coaches, they've tried different things, whether it's reading books, bringing in guest presenters, different things of that nature to work on the mindset. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but the key thing is we have to work on our mindset. We have to work very hard and very smart. We live in a highly competitive society, athletically, academically, a changing world right now. It's been crazy. So we need to be able to get that mind right on command, and we got to whip that up quickly. I will make a point about mental health. I'm a certified school psychologist, and that's what I was doing before my brother and I started Winning Mindset. Well, the numbers aren't very good right now. We all know that. Back in June, 1 in 4 adults were battling, or 40% of adults were battling some kind of mental or emotional disorder or substance abuse. 1 in 4 college-age students were seriously contemplating suicide. And we know the failure rates for virtual learning has jumped like 400%, something crazy like that. So we know mindset is very important. So I look at this as, yes, peak performance, and it's also mental health, right? It's definitely both. So back to what we were saying before about how mental sports are, we have to work very hard and very smart in sports and in school. You don't get more points on a test by studying longer. It's not, that's part of it, putting the time in, but it's also what you're putting into your time. It's the same thing with your training. Same exact thing in sports. You have to work harder and working smarter. So training economy of effort and efficiency is very important. Your team's practicing, so is the other team. What separates the two of you, right? Your athletes are doing strength training, so are they. So how do we get the edge? And very frequently we see it's that mindset. The athletes who know how to maximize their potential in the long run can and will beat the athletes that don't know how to maximize what they have. And it applies to baseball, it applies to all sports. I know some of you probably coach multiple sports. We have programs for all of them, and each one is sport specific. Now, if we don't work on our mindset, we tend to see the same kind of what we call mindset red flags, the same mental mistakes that baseball players are making. Perhaps you could relate to them. Struggling with the yips, being in a slump, not knowing how to bounce back from a slump, giving good teams and good individuals too much respect, the pitcher giving certain batters too much respect, and vice versa, bringing a bad at bat into the field, or bringing an error in the field up to the next at bat, being timid at the plate, missing spots on the mound, being better in practice than in the game, right? A lot of people are all-stars in practice or in the cages, and then they just can't bring it. They can't bring it to the plate, where the pitcher can't bring that to the mound. So those are mindset struggles. That's not physical. If you could do it in practice, you could do it in a game. It's mindset. And we find that, as we all know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We have to attack the problem. You don't get better at math by studying English. You don't get better at history by studying science, right? If we're struggling mentally, we need to attack the issue head on. And it's not just about fixing problems. That's a big misconception of mindset. It's not just fixing things that are broken. It's also finding out what exactly each athlete is doing that is working, and how do we take that to the next level? How do we find what works and take it to the next level? That's key. So when I say mental mistakes, I'm using that term a little bit differently than you are. You're using when you say mental mistakes, I get it. It's more technical. It's knowing where your balls hit to you, where you're going with the ball, right? Base running, there's different mental mistakes there. I know I played baseball, but we're saying mental mistakes. We're speaking more about the psychological, right? So we want to work very hard and very smart. It's what we're putting into our time. Big misconception with mindset training. A lot of people look at what we do as motivational speaking or counseling or therapy. Now, I love all of those things. That's great. Again, I'm a certified school psychologist, and motivational speakers, I watch a lot of them on YouTube, on Instagram, great stuff, right? But when we work with your teams, we're more like strength coaches for the mind. That's your best analogy for what we do. Think about it like that. A strength coach for the mind. A strength coach shows your team the exercises. This is how you lift the weights. And then the athletes actually lift the weights. They don't just think about it. They do the physical work in the weight room, and then they get stronger. They get that, and they get the corrective feedback from the strength coach. Same thing with mindset. Serious ball players are lifting weights or doing some form of strength training 12 months out of the year. Same thing with working on our skills, our drills. Serious ball players are doing that 12 months out of the year. So we look at mindset the same way. If we're saying mindset is 90% of the game, we have to work on our mindset 12 months out of the year. Again, working hard and working smart. Athletes can't just sit back and think about mindset. So when I speak to you, or when I speak to your group, if it's just a motivational speech, I know a lot of coaches have brought in motivational speakers, and that's great. But I look at that as more of like entertainment, more of the sugar. What we're after is behavioral change. To get behavioral change, the athletes need to have active learning tools. So that's something I needed to learn as a school psychologist. How do people learn and retain information? And if you look at the learning pyramid, if you're only listening to a lecture, on average, you're only likely to remember 5%. So listening to a lecture, a motivational speech, is a very low level of learning as far as long-term retention. If you're reading a book, only 10%. A lot of coaches buy their athletes' books, and that's great. I'm all for it. I mean, that's good stuff. We have our own book. I should actually post that on the side of the screen here, so you have all that information up. But if you're only reading a book, 10% retention, still a very low form of learning and retention. If you're watching a video, 20%. Why? Because all three of those modes are very passive. You need active learning, participatory learning. You already know this as good coaches, and I'm sure many of you being teachers. So active learning. So our mindset program consists of worksheets and exercises that the mindset coach takes your team through. So they're actually training their brain as opposed to just sitting back and listening. And again, the cool thing is it's all very baseball specific. The language is made by baseball players for baseball players. I say it once, I say it 46 times. You have to do the things we're telling you to do as far as the exercises. It's not just listening to us, right? Also, it's like strength training in that there's different mental muscles. That's a good way to conceptualize it. Just like there's different physical muscles in the body, you could have strong legs but weak arms. You could have a strong neck but a weak grip. It's very, very similar, if not identical, with your mindset. There's different mental muscles. You could have a ball player who's very mentally tough as far as works very hard, first one in practice, last one out. They have that mental toughness, but they get to a game, they don't know how to relax under pressure. They're not poised at all. So that athlete is very strong with mental toughness, but he's very weak with relaxing under pressure. Different mental muscles, different strengths, different weaknesses. In other words, you don't want to look at it as a very blanket, you don't want to look at it as a blanket entity. This athlete has the mindset and that athlete doesn't have it. That's a very archaic, unscientific way of looking at mindset training. Separate the different mental muscles. On the other hand, you've probably seen athletes who are highly confident on the field. So their mental muscle of competence is strong. But then when you look at their off-season, or their off the field behavior, whether they're drinking, partying, in a bad relationship, getting into problems, their bad grades, that athlete is very mentally weak when it comes to action planning, organization, goal setting at a more practical level. Not goal setting in terms of what they want to accomplish on the field, but goal setting in terms of how they're going to live their life, their day-to-day and week-to-week action plan. That's a part of goal setting. So very mentally strong in one area, very mentally weak in another area. Different mental muscles. When an individual starts our mindset program, we work with teams, we work with individuals. The first thing an individual does is they complete our mindset checklist. Our mindset checklist assesses the ball player on the different mental muscles. We find the strengths and the weaknesses. So we know exactly what this baseball player needs, or just athlete in general. We know what they need and how to train those mental muscles. So again, if you look at it as strength training for the mind, that's what we do. Don't look at this as a motivational speech or a doctor's office. It's very practical, very down to earth. And again, the other two are great. I'm all for therapy. I'm all for motivational speaking. This is a little different. So baseball mindset, again, we've had some great success with this. We're very blessed there. Give you an idea of one of the great mindset lessons we have, jumping right into what we're talking about. How do you build the predator mindset in baseball and in school and in life? Every coach, I'm sure all of you have said this to your athletes or to your kids or to your students. Control the things you can control. Forget about the things you can't control. All of you have said that probably a million times. You've heard it a million times. I'm not teaching you anything new there. Control the controllables, forget about the uncontrollables. But how do we get that message to stick to our athletes? We all know how kids are. It goes in one ear and out the other. How do we get that message to stick? So the way you get it to stick is you have to have more imagery, something they could see. We look at the difference between predator and prey animals. And I ask this question now, how can you tell the difference between a predator and a prey just by looking at them? Think about it. How can you identify a predator animal versus a prey animal? This was a great thing that I actually learned when I was back at the University of Pennsylvania. I took an animal behavior class. A lot of people say, oh, it's their size or it's their teeth. And it's actually their eyes. If you look at a predator animal, like lions, tigers, bears, their eyes are located on the front of their head. So we say eyes on the front like to hunt. And then when you look at prey animals, squirrels, chipmunks, rabbits, deer, maybe we have a few hunters on the call. Are their eyes located on the front? No, their eyes are located on the side of their head. So just like we say eyes on the front like to hunt, we say eyes on the side like to hide. And that becomes our analogy for the predator mindset. Remember, this is never to be taken literally. This is a symbol. This is a metaphor. We say, I know the word predator has a lot of negative connotations. We're talking about animals and as a metaphor. Those predator animals, they're focused on what they can control. They're focused on what's going on right in front of them. The prey animals, they have their eyes on the side because they need to see what's going on around them. They don't want to get eaten for lunch. So here's what you have your athletes do. And this is what we all want to do ourselves. Wake up in the morning, you wash your face, you brush your teeth, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you locate your eyes. And I ask now, where are your eyes located? Front or the side? And we all know the answer to this. Our eyes are located on the front of our head. And what does that mean? I actually asked this question to a group of 8 or 9-year-olds. And I said, well, what does that mean? And this one kid just jumps out of his seat and he goes, oh man, I'm a predator. Like he just got that realization. And I said, that's right. I ran over to him, gave him a high five. It was cool. I felt like Tony Robbins, but he's right. It is an exciting thing. We're born predators. And what that means is every gene in our body, our entire genetic code was designed for goal attainment. We're all designed to think like a predator animal in terms of what is it that I want? And unfortunately, over time, as we grow up, we start to focus on what we don't want. The two human motives, if you break down motivation, we look at motivation, you think of a rah-rah pep talk, a pregame speech. Motivation, the root word in motivation is motive. What are our motives for action? And there's two human motives, fear of pain, desire for pleasure. It basically boils down to that, fear of pain, desire for pleasure. We were actually built for the desire. And what happens is over time, we have bad experiences, we lose, we get made fun of, we get critiqued, and then we start living more in fear of pain. The fear of pain becomes a powerful motivator. And that's not a bad thing. It's okay for that to motivate you. But the point is, we were built for goal attainment. We have our eyes in the front of our heads. So that means we're born predators, and now we need to start acting like it. And you need to start acting like it, and I need to start acting like it. It's a constant process. So what does that look like concretely? What does that have to do with you as a baseball coach and your athletes, your kids, your students, everyone? That's our analogy. If we want to have a predator mindset, all that means is focus on the controllables. And the controllables are your preparation, your lifestyle, and then the day of a game, it's effort, attitude, and aggressiveness. Okay, so your preparation and your lifestyle is all the time. And we have direct control over that. Now, okay, lockdowns happen. We might not be able to control the environment, but we can control our preparation and our lifestyle, even if certain freedoms are restricted. We still have direct control over what we're going to do, how we can make the best of things. And that's how we want our athletes thinking. How can I make the best of things at all times? Because now we know anything can happen. So our preparation and our lifestyle, and the day of a game or the day of any performance, any sport, giving a best man or maid of honor speech, job interview, public speaking in front of thousands of people, The day of the performance, your preparation and your lifestyle are basically in the bank. There's not much you could do, small things you could do in preparation and lifestyle, but the day of a competition, the day of a game, the day of a performance, it comes down to three things: effort, attitude, and aggressiveness. Outside of that, most things aren't in your control. They're not in your control. So we have to get very good at letting them go. Focusing on records, rankings, seedings, predictions. How many of your athletes are so caught up in their stats? Or we're all thinking too much about winning or losing. Or we're overthinking the circumstances. Now, we all know it's important to be aware of the circumstances in the game. You're in the field, you need to know how many outs there are, but it doesn't pay to really be focused. The players in the field can't be thinking about what inning is it? Are we winning? Are they losing? That has no bearing on what we're doing. Focusing on the controllables. We don't want to be caught up on what happened the last time we played this team. Now, of course, there's some strategy. There's small pieces of scouting that are very important, but being preoccupied with the pitcher you're facing, or the pitcher being preoccupied with the hitter, it becomes prey mindset. Getting too caught up in others' opinions. This is a big one, not only for success on the field, but also happiness in life, and avoiding mental struggles that a lot of people have right now as far as anxiety and depression. We cannot get caught up in other people's opinions of us. We don't want to think about praise, recognition, pity, or approval from other people. And we're all guilty of this time to time. We say certain things so we could get a pat on the back, or so we get, yeah, you really do have it tough. I get it. That's a human thing, but we want to make sure we get our athletes out of that and get ourselves out of that as much as possible. We do not want to look for praise, pity, recognition, or approval from other people. Focus on what we can control. Even focusing on winning, I would argue that is a prey mindset because it's not directly in our control. One of our athletes really wanted to get into Brown University, Ivy League school. He did really well on the SATs, on the PSATs rather, the practice SATs, and he would choke during the real SATs. One big problem: you can't get into Brown if you don't have a good SAT score. So the mindset parameters there, the mindset struggles are almost identical to sports there. When I asked him, what are you thinking while you're taking the real SATs? He does not want to let his parents down. He's thinking about getting into Brown. He's thinking about what his score is going to be. He's thinking about what happened the last time he took the SATs. Now I ask you, even from the short time of listening to this predator and prey mindset, those four things that he's thinking, is that predator mindset or is that prey mindset? Is he focusing on the things within his control, or is he thinking about factors outside of his control? Obviously, we know he's focusing on factors outside of his control. So this is a lesson not just for baseball. This is a message for our whole lives. To me, winning the game is not only being a very successful baseball player, it's doing well in school, having a successful career, being happy, and also, most importantly, just being good people, living a good, clean life. So that's predator mindset. And the big reason, one of the big reasons why mentally and emotionally we struggle getting to those low areas of anxiety, depression, is because we're too focused on comparing ourselves to other people. Or what do other people think about me? Stop comparing yourself to other people. That's prey mindset. So anything that can be learned, and this prey mindset is something that we've all learned over time. If it can be learned, it can be unlearned. But you have to take the time and retrain your brain. That's exactly what we do. We train the athletes out of that prey mindset to developing that predator mindset. The predator mindset, again, your preparation and your lifestyle. So right now, it's not, when you look at it, it's not your team versus the other team. I mean, it is in one sense, but it's not so much your team versus the other team. It's your team's lifestyle against the other team's lifestyle. In other words, if your team is living at a higher level, making good decisions both on and off the field, eating better, sleeping better, training harder, training smarter, eventually your team is going to pass the other team. Maybe not right now, maybe not this week, maybe not next year, but over time, the team that operates at a better lifestyle, at a higher lifestyle, is going to beat the team that might be more talented, but is not living the life. So, we have to face it. Baseball, all sports, it's holistic. At Springfield College, maybe some of you went there. There was the quote of the school. The motto was spirit, mind, and body. Springfield College, that's the motto there, spirit, mind, and body. Well, a lot of people use that these days as more of like a punchline or a catchphrase. And it's not a punchline or a catchphrase. It's a way of life. It's saying you're approaching sports from a holistic perspective. It's mindset. It's our technique. It's our skills and drills, our eating, our sleeping, plyometrics, tendon strength, rest and recovery, rehab, prehab, doing all of those things right, doing well academically, socially. We know if our academics are struggling, the athletes are going to struggle. If they're struggling socially, a lot of times they also struggle on the field. So operating at a high lifestyle. Your preparation, of course, that goes without saying. Then you look at the day of a performance, the day of a game, and it comes down to effort, attitude, and aggressiveness. I will elaborate on each one of those now. So effort, it comes down to one simple question. Are you going to go all out, or are you going to hold back? And only you know the answer to that question. Only you know if you gave it a full effort. So making sure that you're all in. When you're in class, when you're playing, when you're practicing, you can't be all in a game and not all in practice. Some athletes do it. Some athletes are able to turn it on. The overwhelming majority will not perform at their best. No athlete's going to perform at their best if they're not taking practice seriously. You want to make practice similar to a game and a game similar to practice. We tell our athletes all the time, there's no big games and no small games. It's just baseball. You treat it the same way every time. The best example I could think of about with this, and this is in my book that I posted up on the side of the screen, How to Build the Predator Mindset. You can't quite see it on over here while I have it there, but 2011 World Series, I think back to Lance Berkman, and this is actually how he and I got in touch. I wrote about him in my book, and we posted this out on our email, and he got back to me, and he said, oh, this was a great thing. Well, 2011 World Series, if you could rewind to that period of time, his team, the Cardinals, were down 2 strikes. It was 2 outs, 3-2, losing in the World Series. It was the 9th inning, 2 outs, and it came down to Lance Berkman. And I think there was a runner either on first or second. He might have been in scoring position. Anyway, Lance Berkman gets in the ultimate pressure situation, barring losing the World Series. He gets a hit, brings it into extra innings. Cardinals wind up winning, and then eventually wind up taking the World Series that year. The key that sticks out in my mind was his interview after that game. The interviewer asked him, what were you thinking when you got to the plate? 2 outs, you're down 3-2. What were you telling yourself? And this is why I included this in my book. He said, I knew I was probably going to make an out, right? 7 out of 10 times you make an out in baseball. I just wanted to focus on having a good at-bat. Just have a good at-bat. All he was thinking about was put the bat on the ball. So put the bat on the ball, just have a good at-bat. That's what he was focused on. He wasn't focused on the magnitude of the game. He wasn't focusing on the outs. Just have a good at-bat. Just put the bat on the ball. And whether or not he succeeded, by having that mentality, you're much more likely to succeed. Anyway, I included that in the book. He reached out after, and then we were able to start working with his team. But that is a great example of mindset. And of course, it's not just Lance Berkman. It's not just Andy Pettitte. There are many great baseball players. I've learned a lot about this just by watching baseball throughout the years and seeing what the top athletes say. So it's that effort. You're all out. Then attitude. Are you going to be positive or are you going to be negative? And that's a choice. The more time that goes by, being a positive person doesn't mean smiling and laughing. You know, a lot of people think of what I do is when they hear mindset training, they think more kumbaya, let's hold hands in a circle and rainbows and sunshine and butterflies and all those things, right? That's not being a positive thinker. That might help, but to me, you don't have to be smiling. You don't have to be laughing to be a positive thinker. Being a positive thinker, it's a discipline. It's a choice that you make on a moment-to-moment basis to focus on what you're thankful for, to focus on what are the positives, to focus on the things that you can control. What's the opportunity? During COVID, lockdowns, what's the opportunity? What are the positives? That's a hard thing to do. When you're having a bad, and you find out if you're a positive thinker when the rubber meets the road, when you don't do well, when you have a bad game, when you don't do so well on a test, and things like that. You start to see, are you a positive? Are you going to choose to be positive? Or are you going to choose to be negative? Right? Umpire makes a bad call. You have a choice. Are you going to be positive or negative? You make an error in the field. Now you get to the plate. Are you going to be positive or negative? It's a moment-to-moment choice. It's not a feeling. A positive thinker is not a feeling. It's not an emotion. It's an act of the will. It's a decision. It's a choice. That's a very important thing to remember about positive thinking. And then aggressiveness. Finally, aggressiveness. In other words, we don't focus on winning or losing, but you compete to win. You don't compete not to lose, right? We tell our players all the time, treat it the same. Everything's the same. There's no big games, there's no small games. 9 times out of 10, if you make a game special, you lose. 9 times out of 10, you make an at-bat special, you lose. You know, the player knows a scout is there or a college coach is watching them. They make it special. They make the game special. They do worse. I always say this, everything is important, but nothing is special. So one of the best things you could do for your athletes is not treat them as special games. It's another game. It's just another day in the office. That's the best way to approach it. And we're playing to win. We're not playing not to lose. Of course, with baseball, see, to me, baseball is very similar to the sales teams that I work with because there's a lot more failure than success. So there's a lot in common there. And when you look at baseball, just look at baseball history. Cy Young, the Cy Young Award, the MVP of pitchers. He had the most wins of all time. Do you know who had the most losses of all time? Cy Young, right? So that the MVP of pitchers is named after the pitcher who lost the most times in history. I think it was like 300 games. That record will probably never be broken. Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, 3 home runs in the World Series. Well, guess what? Most strikeouts of all time. Pete Rose had the most hits of all time, 4,256. He also made the most outs. Over and over, we see success and failure go hand in hand. So the best athletes, and one of the things we do with our athletes is we have them redefine success and failure, not in terms of their statistics, not in terms of the outcome, but in terms of what they can control. I think a lot about Pete Rose. And when he ran over that catcher in the All-Star game, if you watch that interview, one of the things he spoke about, I think it was on Sports Century 30 for maybe Sports Century was maybe 30 for 30. In any event, Pete Rose said that he had a lot of critiques from people. People were upset that why did you do this in the All-Star game, right? Why were you running over the catcher in the All-Star game? He said, what difference does it make if it was an All-Star game, a preseason game, or in the World Series? If you're playing to win, you treat it all the same. That's why he's known as Charlie Hustle. You had to love the way he played the game because that was the mindset. It doesn't matter if it's preseason, postseason, you're playing ball. You're playing to win. So competing to win, not competing not to lose. And that doesn't mean focusing on winning and losing. I mean, that means don't focus on that, but focus on those things that are in your control. And if you look at the animal kingdom, going back to our animal analogy, the lion is the king of the jungle. Do you know what the lion's success rate is? Like what percentage of the prey that the lion chases does he actually kill? 25%. The king of the jungle only has a 25% success rate. A lot of times athletes aren't aware of that. You think of a lion, you think a lion's going to be successful 100% of the time. Did I get muted for a second? I might have got muted for a second. Yeah, so the lion's only batting 250, 25% kill rate. Actually, a cheetah has a 50% kill rate. And one of the interesting things to note, a cheetah is twice as fast as a lion. So what does that tell you? Speed. And what does that look like in terms of baseball? Not just speed on the field, but being able to recover quicker. That makes you a faster player. The ability to focus, to shift your focus from one thing to the next, that makes you a faster player. So that's speed. The faster we are, the faster learners we are, the more coachable we are, the more humble, the better we're going to do. So making sure we have that predator mindset. Again, it's what I love about it. What gets me excited is that's not only going to help you succeed in the biggest baseball game of your life, even though I don't like to look at it as big or small games, you're more likely to bring it on game day and rise to the occasion with that predator mindset. But you're also more likely to be happy. You're less likely to have anxiety in general or we all get to low levels of sadness at different times. We all have bad days, but the lows will not get as low if you have that predator mindset. That's what those best athletes have. And I'll share the screen with you, but you'll like this photo here. If you could see here, the last Olympics, you look at Michael Phelps against his rival in the Olympic finals. And what do you notice here? If you remember before this on TV, it showed the guys, the Michael Phelps opponent here was staring him down. If you remember, Michael Phelps was just kind of like zoning out, looking right through him. Well, Michael Phelps here is just focusing on things within his control. Michael Phelps is focusing on the wall. And look, you get into competition, Michael Phelps focusing on the wall, his opponent's looking at him. So who has the predator mindset and who has the prey mindset? Michael Phelps is focused on what he can control, and it's not just him. This is what the champions in sports do. They focus on what they can control. You look at all the best, and one of the great things that we've done during the lockdowns, we started a YouTube show called Meeting of the Minds. And I've been very blessed to interview not only some of the most successful coaches of all sports, some of the most successful athletes, multimillionaire business owners, some of the happiest people, some of the holiest people, some of the great spiritual masters. And these people, what they have in common is they're not lazy thinkers. They focus on the opportunity. They focus on what they could control. And a big thing we always speak about is gratitude. I want you to make gratitude your greatest weapon. That's right, I said it. I want you to weaponize gratitude. If you watch the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, almost all great athletes say the same thing. I was thankful for the opportunity. We've all heard that many, many times. I was thankful for the opportunity. Well, guess what? It's hard to be nervous and thankful at the same time. It's hard. If you're thankful to be in the moment, and we're blessed to be in the moment. You know, we know sports can be shut down at any time, just like that. So we've all learned a very hard lesson, if any of us have taken things for granted, that things can be taken away at any time, whether it be a lockdown, an injury. I mean, Joe DiMaggio, when World War II came, he lost some of his best years to the war. He came back from the war. He was never the same. Now, of course, over in Red Sox Nation, Ted Williams came back from the war and he hit the Triple Crown. So that's a tribute to him. But anything can be taken from us. So being thankful for the opportunity. When we work with our teams, one of the mindset lessons we have them do in terms of being more actively participating is we have them go through the 4 mindset principles. I'm thankful for the opportunity to play. That's number 1. I'm aggressive and relentless. I have no fear of losing or making mistakes, and I never, ever give up. They say them before and after every practice as a team. It builds culture. It builds camaraderie. And it makes us know this is who we are. This is what we're about. One of the great lessons with goal setting is the word behave. I used to tell my Springfield athletes this. In the word behave, it can be broken down into 2 words, be and have. And the order is very important. Be comes before have. Most people focus first on what they want to have. They focus, I want to have a college scholarship. I want to have $1 million, everything they want to have. You need to first focus on the person you need to be. Focus on the person you need to be to have the things you want. And that's one of the big secrets of highly successful athletes. They focus on the person they need to be. So remember, our whole goal is we build a culture with these teams. A lot of times we're working with some of the best teams and we're giving them that edge. Build the gap on your competition. Have this as your edge. This is something that other teams aren't doing. Consistent. It's better to do a lot than a lot of little. Right? You might be able to study the night before a test for 5 hours. Maybe some of you did this in college. I'm guilty of it too. You study for 5 hours, you get an A on the test the next day. But what's the long-term retention like? Usually pretty bad. But if you studied 20 minutes every night, not only are you going to get the A, long-term retention. Same thing with strength training. Same thing with your skills and drills. Baseball, your practices, it's better to do a lot than to do a lot, a little. So that's the idea. These micro learning sessions are huge for these players. And also, as we said before, fixing those mindset red flags. I'll post them up just so you could see them. Again, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So be struggling with the yips, being in a slump, difficulty bouncing back, being timid at the plate, missing spots on the mound, being much better in practice than in a game. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And it carries over not just from baseball, but also to life. So we're all about helping you with this. Anyone who's on this call, I'm more than happy to do a team introductory session. We're happy to do a free one for your team so you could see exactly what it is. Again, we have a team program. We have an individual program. If some of you have kids, we work with all sports. Each sport is built out specifically. I posted up on the side. You see right there, I'm summing things up right now. Our daily motivation text message. If you text Mindset1 to 84576, every day we give you something great. So Monday, there's a Mindset Monday video. There's a Toughness Tuesday challenge. There's a Wednesday wisdom. We have a Thursday nutrition tip, a Friday fitness tip, Saturday sale, and a Sunday story. So you're getting it's free. Every day you have that. Our Predator Mindset book's up there, as well as our Baseball Mindset link tree. That's basically our one-stop shop of our YouTube, our podcast, our Instagram, all of that. So again, we want to use baseball as a vehicle to build mental skills and virtue, baseball, in school, and in life. We keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure you left no stone unturned. You did everything you possibly could to make sure you had a successful career. So whether it's baseball, school, or life, or your career, mindset makes the difference. I thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from you again. We'll be doing free trial introductory sessions, 30 minutes with any of your teams. Happy to help. Take care.
Thank you very much, Gene. Very well done and much appreciated. A lot of food for thought there for us coaches.
Happy to help.